The original Knack had something of an identity crisis. It was too punitive to be a kid's game, but it lacked the sophistication or variety to be anything much more. Miraculously, Japan's studio has been given a chance to make amends. To turn that identity crisis into a crisis-tunity? The results are mixed, but at the very least, Knack 2 is a much better game. Knack's core abilities remain much the same. He's able to gather relics to grow in size, allowing for some fun shifts in scale. These are still very much prescribed, there's no player strategy associated with growing larger, but that doesn't take away from how satisfying it is to rampage through a city as a 20-foot Leviathan. Knack can also shed his relics in an instant to fit into small doorways, skirt under spinning blades, or leap between little ledges, and then reform on the other side. It's an enjoyably dynamic ability and heavily factors into Knack 2's platforming, puzzle solving, and secrets. If you've ever played a platform game before, you know what to expect here. Contrabulous fabtraptions packed with moving platforms, tricks, traps, steam vents, and the like. Knack can feel a little clumsy at times, but thankfully the checkpointing is generous. The puzzle solving is similarly familiar. You're shifting blocks around, weighing down pressure-sensitive switches, bouncing lasers off mirrors to activate doohickeys, and so on. That's not to say these sequences aren't well designed or satisfying, however. They're just staples of the genre. Knack's combat prowess has been expanded significantly for Knack 2, and by the end of the game he has a pretty strong suite of abilities at his claw tips. Your average fight mixes and matches several different types of enemies, forcing you to prioritize and use different tactics. Electrical enemies need to be disabled before you can attack, for instance, while projectiles can be parried, shield-bearing foes can be opened up with a heavy attack, distance can be closed using a spinning kick, and groups of small, squishy enemies can be pummeled with a body slam, which grows ever more satisfying as Knack grows in stature. It's also a chaotic blast to play in co-op, with some clever additional gameplay flourishes, such as the ability to kick the other player into enemies, set off explosions by body slamming your co-op partner, and literally punch relics off them like a machine gun. Given how much fun Knack is to control, it's a real shame that outside of gameplay, he's one of the blandest characters in modern video games. I mean, he basically has no discernible personality, and his few utterances throughout the game are perfunctory at best.
I really hate goblins.
Embarrassingly lame at worst.
Why, hello there.
It's a massive missed opportunity, but then the same could be said for almost all the characters here. The Knack game should really be about the relationship between Knack and Lucas, but for all intents and purposes, they don't have one. It's certainly not reflected through the dialogue and cutscenes. There was so much more Japan's studio could have done with this duo, and in stamping this game with a distinct personality. And no, dancing in the credits doesn't count.
Would you happen to know where I can find your leader?
So what of the story? It's a mishmash of high goblins and city-devouring robots, ancient technologies and revenge plans, with some awkward adolescent romantic tension tossed in for good measure.
Do you always let feelings influence your actions?
By the end, the stakes are suitably high and you're invested simply because, well, you're 10 hours in now, but it's not very good.
The bridge is out. It's not out. It's just up.
Knack 2 is pretty uneven in terms of its presentation overall. There are moments of beauty and the direction during the QuickTime events is appropriately energetic, but the world as a whole is merely adequate, and your companions are disappointingly wooden. They're also often capable of inexplicable teleportation. I lost count of the number of times I took Knack on some impossibly acrobatic combat-heavy route only for my human counterparts to somehow follow, or appear ahead of me. Why is there no explanation? It's really not that hard.
Maybe flip a switch or something.
Still, you're looking at around 12 hours from start to finish to play through the story, and that then unlocks New Game Plus, a time attack mode with a host of bespoke challenges, and the ability to redo any level to try and top your score and complete submissions. So there's some meat here. Poor characters and flawed presentation aside, I enjoyed my time with Knack 2. The pacing is spot on, the combat's satisfying and the gameplay varied. Co-op is genuinely good fun too, and most definitely the best way for younger gamers to get into the action. So Knack 2 is definitely a step up from the original, but there's still room for this series to grow. If you're hungering for more Knack 2, why not check out the first 15 minutes, or dive into some co-op action.